The masked man feels a surge of frustration. His pursuers are closing in faster than he anticipated. The formidable Frost Wolf cavalry announces its presence, demanding immediate surrender from its quarry. Escape seems unlikely. He grits his teeth in grim realization. The notorious Frost Wolf cavalry has indeed found them. The woman he carries glares with defiance, demanding he halt his actions at once. A soldier issues a dire warning. Any harm to the third princess will result in severe consequences for the daring bandit. He curses his luck, realizing that crossing paths with the third princess's entourage was a disastrous mistake. In a moment of chaos, the princess is struck by an unexpected thought. Her captor's eyes are beautiful. Half a month earlier, a secluded bamboo grove near Xuan City rustles with untold secrets. Yu Hanking, the third prince, takes a slow sip, his patience clearly wearing thin. He wonders what tiresome matter requires his attention now. A servant reports with news regarding the engagement arranged by His Majesty. He has brought profiles of the eligible women from the Ling residence. The prince raises an eyebrow in recognition. The Ling family of Luochuan is renowned for their skill as perfumers. The servant confirms, explaining that the head of the Ling family has 2 daughters by his first wife, the second and third young miss. The second young miss is described as talented yet spoiled. The prince, unimpressed, redirects the inquiry to the third young miss. The third young miss, the servant explains, is an introverted daughter from a different mother, lacking in talent and poise. The prince makes his choice without hesitation. He will marry the unassuming third miss. Her quiet nature, he reasons, will mean a less troublesome marriage, much to his servant's disbelief. He also sees this as an opportunity for atonement. His grandfather once wronged the Ling family, and this marriage is a way to ensure their current generation prospers. Given his own fleeting mortality, the prince feels a strange sense of fairness. Pairing 2 people destined to die young somehow lessens the guilt he would otherwise feel. The matter settled, the prince dismisses his servant, who bows and takes his leave. Alone once more, he contemplates his self-imposed exile. He has long since retired from the world's conflicts, seeking only seclusion. Yet they still meddle in his affairs with this arranged marriage. He wonders if he is still so feared, even in his diminished state. Within the walls of the Ling residence, a cry of outrage echoes. This proposed union is seen as a disgrace. The family matriarch is livid. She reminds them of their ancestors' sacred rule. The Ling women are forbidden from marrying into the imperial family. Her son attempts to soothe her anger, confessing his own confusion over the imperial family's sudden and unexpected order. The matriarch scoffs at his naivety. They have let the wolf into their home. It is foolish to think they can now ask it to leave without losing some flesh. Staring out the window, a young woman quietly wonders if she must truly drink the bitter concoction. Her maid gently insists. The young miss's body is too frail to go without her medicine. Ling Jiangli sighs with bitter irony. She cheated death only to be reborn into the frail, sickly body of another. She was a brilliant perfumer in the 21st century, on the verge of a breakthrough. To die in her prime and end up here feels like a cruel joke. The maid's voice pulls her from her thoughts, a gentle reminder that the medicine is getting cold. The door is thrown open as a furious woman storms in, her voice sharp as she calls out Ling Jiangli's name. Ling Jai cuts straight to the point, her tone laced with impatience. She demands the immediate return of an unspecified item. As the maid addresses the second young miss, Ling Jiangli plays innocent, asking what she could possibly be referring to. Ling Jai's fury erupts. She accuses Jiangli of putting on an act and warns her not to feel superior just because of her new engagement. She sneers at the mention of Yu Hanking, dismissing him as a crippled, blind man, incapable of protecting anyone. Ling Jiangli remains composed, calmly stating that her marriage is her own business and not something her sister needs to worry about. A cruel smirk plays on Ling Jai's lips. She agrees that a woman fated to die young and a disabled man are indeed a perfect, tragic match. Ling Jiangli watches her leave, puzzled by the visit. It seems her sister came only to deliver a volley of insults and then depart. Seeing her maid's concern, she offers a reassuring smile. Surely, things cannot possibly get any worse than they already are. A flicker of determination crosses her face. It is time to pack their belongings and begin the journey. As they prepare, she comes across a small, unfamiliar box, her curiosity piqued. A memory surfaces, her mother entrusting these very items to a servant to be given to her when she came of age. She opens the box to find a book of fragrance recipes. It's the very thing her sister, Ling Jai, was so desperately searching for. A wave of hope washes over her. With this knowledge, she can resume her life's passion and, more importantly, gain the power to protect herself. Her excitement quickly turns to confusion. She opens the book, only to find the contents completely incomprehensible. She realizes the problem. The aromatic herbs and spices of this era are entirely different from the ones she knew in her modern world. It seems her expertise is useless here. With a resigned sigh, she accepts that she must start her education all over again from the very beginning. Dressed in her formal bridal attire, she formally bids farewell to her parents before her departure. Her father expresses a rare moment of regret for his past neglect. He urges her to be exceedingly careful in her new life within the imperial family. She respectfully promises to heed his words, all while her sister watches from the sidelines with an unreadable expression. Her maid gently takes her hand, softly reminding her that it is time for them to leave. She takes a deep breath, accepting her new reality. Reborn into a family of perfumers, she feels it is her destiny to walk this path. With renewed purpose, she vows to complete the research she was forced to abandon in her past life. This new world will not stop her. The command is given, and the wedding procession begins its long journey. Meanwhile, back at the Ling residence, the sound of shattering porcelain accompanies a furious shout. Someone is just now learning a crucial piece of information. The matriarch's focus is singular. The recipe book must be retrieved. She orders her daughter to send a message to her uncle. Ling Jiangli must be captured before she reaches Xuan City. Ling Zhai agrees with relish, ready to set the plan in motion immediately. The matriarch nurses her rage, sneering at the thought of Ling Jiangli's supposed happiness and her short lifespan. Miles away in her carriage, Ling Jiangli shivers, an unsettling feeling washing over her. It feels as if someone somewhere is cursing her very name. Her maid advises her not to worry. The doctor himself said overthinking caused her sickness, and her health has been improving lately. An unexpected visitor appears at the carriage door. She introduces herself as Ziazu, a personal guard sent by the Lord. Ziazu explains that the prince, concerned about the long journey, has personally assigned her to ensure the young miss's safety. Ling Jiangli politely expresses her gratitude for the consideration. She formally voices her thanks for the prince's thoughtfulness and entrusts her safety to her new guard for the remainder of the journey. Ziazu studies her new charge, finding her quite different from the rumors. She is neither as frail nor as arrogant as she had been led to believe. A small, knowing smile touches Ziazu's lips. This assignment, she muses, might just turn out to be interesting. Ziazu apologizes for speaking out of turn, but she cannot help but comment on how different the young miss is from her reputation. Ling Jiangli's eyes twinkle with amusement. She playfully asks if her guard suspected the family of sending a substitute bride. She calmly explains that before, she was indeed introverted. However, a near-death experience has fundamentally changed her outlook on life. The explanation makes sense. Besides, Jiangli thinks to herself, it's not like anyone knew the real her, and faking chronic illness is more trouble than it's worth. Ziazu enjoys their conversation, but her tone becomes serious. Even though the third prince's residence is quieter than most, Jiangli must remain vigilant. Before his injury, the prince was a warrior constantly guarding the frontier. He is considerate, but she cannot expect the same from others in the palace. Ling Jiangli looks out the window, taking in the warning. She understands the unspoken dangers of her new life. 5 days pass on the road. The escort group rests for the night at a quiet inn. Over a cup of tea, Ling Jiangli casually asks her guard for more details about the household she is about to enter. Ziazu hesitates before revealing a complication. The emperor had previously arranged a concubine for the prince, though his duties at the frontier meant they were never close. Sensing there is more, Ling Jiangli urges her to spit it out. The guard reveals the rest. The emperor has sent another concubine to the prince's residence, timed to arrive on the very same wedding day. She inwardly clicks her tongue at the predictable imperial drama. Outwardly, she simply resolves to live as peacefully as she can when the day comes. Ziazu offers a final piece of advice. While peace is important, allow she others to bully her. Subject, allow she others to bully her, finally asks the question that's been on her mind. What is her future husband actually like? She needs to gather intelligence. If he proves to be intolerable, it's best to have an escape plan ready. After a moment of thought, Ziazu gives a simple, unwavering answer. The Lord is a good person. That's it, she deflates, thoroughly underwhelmed by the lack of detail. A voice calls from outside, urgently seeking Commander Zhu. Her duty calling, Ziazu excuses herself and departs. The maid sighs, remarking on the commander's talent for building suspense, and then leaving. The day's events have left Ling Jiangli feeling weary. She tells her maid to clear the table, as she needs to rest. Even as she tries to rest, she can't shake a feeling of unease. She wonders if she's just being paranoid, or if something is truly wrong. A strange scent cuts through the air, putting her on high alert. She asks her maid, Tao Fen, if she smells it too. Tao Fen sniffs the air, but detects nothing unusual. Suddenly, her maid cries out in alarm, seeing her collapsed on the floor. Jiangli explains the strange scent came from the floorboards. She was lucky to have a cleansing fragrance from her doctor that could counteract other smells. A dreadful realization dawns on her. If she was targeted, the others in her escort have likely been ambushed as well. Without a second thought, she springs into action. Rescuing the others is the only thing that matters now. She awakens in the arms of the masked man. He is shocked that she, a woman who supposedly knows nothing of fragrances, could resist the poison he developed himself. Her initial shock turns to anger. She cannot believe she was just abducted with such ease. He introduces himself as Tu Ran, a name that means in vain. He declares that all efforts of his targets are ultimately futile. He presses for an answer, but she continues her charade, insisting she knows nothing of perfumes and that the antidote was simply something from her family. Tu Ran scoffs, but he seems to accept her explanation, grudgingly acknowledging the Ling family's renowned expertise. He mocks the idea of a rescue, telling her to stop dreaming. Her fiancé, Yu Hanking, is in no position to help anyone. His words strike a nerve. He explains that whether the emperor is protecting the disabled prince or merely holding him captive, the fact remains that everyone wants him dead. He looks her over with contempt, declaring that someone so frail and without noble bearing wouldn't last a day in Shuan City. His taunts are cut short by a sudden, shocked realization. The Frost Wolf cavalry has arrived, and he failed to notice their approach. He urges the horse forward, shouting at her to hold on tight. If she falls now, she'll be trampled underfoot. As they flee, he can't help but remark with annoyed surprise that her fiancé actually cared enough to send a rescue party. The lead rider of the cavalry, a man named Chun Lei, demands to know the identity of the kidnapper and his motive. Tu Ran callously retorts that it's a simple matter of business. He was paid to eliminate her. Chun Lei makes a final offer. Return the princess unharmed, and he will be allowed to live. But the kidnapper refuses. The reward money is too great, and besides, she won't live long enough to become anyone's princess. He recoils in shock, realizing she has somehow poisoned him. She panics, confessing she only meant to knock him out so she could escape, unaware that help was coming. As the poison takes hold, he recognizes the substance and collapses against her. Jiangli awakens in a room, her maid hovering over her with immense relief, thankful that no harm came to her. She sits up with a wry smile, telling her maid not to worry. She considers herself too blessed to die so easily. Her maid panics at the casual mention of death, begging her to unsay such an unlucky word. Just then, Ziazu rushes into the room, her face etched with relief to see Jiangli conscious. Her professional demeanor returns, as she carefully checks if Jiangli is feeling any lingering effects or discomfort. Reassuring her guard that she's fine, Jiangli's curiosity takes over. She wants to know who her rescuer was. Ziazu answers with a bright smile, proudly announcing that it was Commander Chun Lei. Jiangli shakes her head. She isn't asking about the cavalry commander, but the mysterious person who grabbed her from the kidnapper. Ziazu, who wasn't at the scene, can only assume it was Chun Lei. She can't imagine anyone in the cavalry possessing superior martial skill. Still seeking answers, Ling Jiangli politely requests an audience with Commander Chun Lei. After a brief, almost imperceptible hesitation, Ziazu agrees and leaves to fetch the commander. Commander Chun Lei arrives shortly after, kneeling to give a formal greeting to his new princess. She dismisses the formalities, simply wishing to express her sincere gratitude for his timely intervention. He responds with humility, stating that he was only fulfilling his duty to serve and protect her. As he speaks, she studies his face. It's immediately clear to her that his eyes are not the ones she remembers. It definitely wasn't him. She is left to wonder about the identity of her true savior and why they choose to remain a mystery. She makes a silent vow. If she ever sees those eyes again, she will recognize them in an instant. Under the light of a full moon, a lavishly decorated boat drifts on a tranquil lake. On the boat, a woman named Yun Ning tends to the wounds of Sikong Nanjian. She scolds him for insisting on getting involved in dangerous affairs. He explains that he had no choice. It was a matter of repaying a debt, and only now is his heart at ease. Yun Ning points out the flaw in his logic. If the person he helped remains unaware of his actions, then the debt is not truly repaid. But for Sikong Nanjian, all that matters is his own clear conscience. She sighs in resignation, her concern shifting to a more practical matter. How will he possibly explain these wounds to his father? He was supposed to be at the third prince's wedding ceremony on the 9th of September, a duty he clearly cannot fulfill in his current state. He brushes it off, saying they can simply wait for him to recover. He doesn't consider Yu Hanking's wedding to be a major event, leaving her to worry about the diplomatic fallout. He instructs her to pass on a message. The target is a weak woman incapable of harm, and the contract should be dropped. He seems to have made up his mind about something. He examines the small vial she left behind, a slow, incredulous anger building. That frail woman actually dared to poison him. He crushes the vial in his hand, a dangerous glint in his eyes. Her new title won't save her from his wrath. On the 9th of September, the day of the wedding arrives, and the procession stands ready before the Su residence. The bride waits in anxious silence. She begins to fear that the groom has had a last-minute change of heart. Her groom, the third Prince Yu Hanking, waits patiently, his eyes covered by a simple white cloth. His voice cuts through the silence, a simple, direct command for her to exit the sedan. As she approaches, he reaches out and takes her hand, ready to proceed. The moment their hands touch, she is struck by how cold his skin is. At the same time, another woman is being led through a discreet back entrance to the palace. Tao Xuhan, the side consort, fumes with indignation. She cannot believe that she, a general's daughter, is forced to sneak in while Ling Jiangli receives a grand welcome. Her maid gently reminds her that this was her own choice. She had offers to be a main consort to other princes, but insisted on marrying this one. She snaps at her attendant, retorting that she doesn't understand the situation at all. She has adored Hanking since childhood. Furthermore, he is the emperor's true brother, which gives him a status the other princes can never match. The maid cuts the conversation short, gently reminding the side consort that they must head inside. The time for the ceremony is drawing near, and the maid insists they delay no further. With time slipping away, the maid once again presses her mistress to proceed into the residence. The wedding ceremony proceeds, and an attendant offers the ceremonial wine for the new couple to share. A court attendant recites traditional verses, wishing for harmony and a perfect union between the two. The ceremony concludes with congratulations and wishes for a harmonious marriage, blessed with deep feelings and many children. Once the formalities are over, Ling Jiangli collapses in exhaustion, immensely relieved that the lengthy ceremony has ended. Just as she begins to relax, a sudden thought strikes her. There is one more thing she almost forgot. She retrieves a small bottle from her sleeve and presents it to the prince. He remains still, and she suddenly remembers with a pang of awkwardness that he is blind. He asks what she is holding. She explains that the ceremonial wine was poisoned, and this is the antidote. While she hasn't identified the exact poison, she assures him it's not a strong one, and helps him drink the remedy. Understanding his precarious situation, she pledges her support as his consort. He coughs, rejecting her offer. He is used to his circumstances and appreciates her intentions, but she only needs to worry about herself. He does, however, offer to provide an escort if she wishes to leave the palace. She concedes, admitting she was being a worrywart. In any case, she has no plans to go out and will remain in the residence for now. Just then, a servant announces from outside that the meal the prince ordered has been prepared. She pats his arm affectionately, touched by his unexpected kindness. He encourages her to eat, and a quiet, comfortable atmosphere settles between them as they share the meal. As she eats, she can't help but stare, struck by how unfairly handsome he is. She gives herself a mental shake. She absolutely cannot allow herself to be swayed by a handsome face. With the meal finished, she tentatively asks if he is ready to retire for the night. This is proving to be much harder than she'd imagined. Her grand plans are feeling very flimsy in person. To her shock, he begins to wheel himself away with unerring accuracy. She blurts out, asking if he can actually see. He calmly explains that after 4 years of blindness, he has memorized the layout of the entire house. The awkward silence stretches, and she asks again if he plans to rest. She sighs in frustration, once again lamenting how difficult her plans are to execute. She watches him navigate flawlessly, her shock and confusion evident. He patiently repeats that his familiarity with the residence comes from years of navigating it, without sight. He stops and asks her to come and help him remove his outer robe. As she helps him, her hand brushes against his torso, and she is inwardly shocked to discover he has a well-defined physique. It's a surprisingly pleasant sensation. He interrupts her exploration with a dry question, asking if she's finished. She blurts out a denial before she can stop herself. Flustered, she laughs nervously and quickly clarifies that she meant she wasn't done removing his belt yet. After removing the belt, she regains her composure and asks for his next instruction. His next instruction is simple: the crown. While removing the heavy headpiece, she accidentally pulls his hair, causing him to wince and ask if she did it on purpose. She apologizes with a cheerful smile, explaining her inexperience and promising to be more careful. She looks from him to the bed, realizing the next obstacle. He is a man who cannot get onto the bed by himself. A confident smile spreads across her face. In her past life, she was a judo-trained tomboy. She is more than capable of handling his little body. As she lifts him with surprising ease, he asks in alarm what she's doing. She simply announces that it's time for bed. He is completely flustered, his mind racing as she carries him towards the bed. What is this woman doing? She feels a surge of pride. Her tomboy reputation was well-earned, and carrying him was no trouble at all. He is taken aback by her strength and audacity. His new wife, he thinks, is a truly remarkable woman. Then it hits her. She just completely shattered her cover as a weak, helpless noblewoman. Trying to salvage the situation, she playfully asks for a reward for her efforts. Intrigued, he asks what she has in mind. She immediately regrets her words, panicking internally. What did she just say? Why did she say that? He breaks the silence, teasingly asking why she's suddenly gone quiet after her display of heroic strength. He gently prods, asking if his wife has decided on her reward, but she can only stammer. She feels like she's just dug her own grave with her big mouth. Taking pity on her, he suggests she can tell him her answer later. It's getting late, and she gratefully agrees. As she turns to leave him by the bed, a mischievous thought occurs to her, and she asks if he sleeps in the nude. His reply is a simple, flat no. In that case, she declares, she won't bother taking off the rest of his clothes. As she settles onto the bed beside him, her curiosity shifts to the blindfold covering his eyes. He issues a firm, quiet command not to touch it. She leans closer, wondering if his eyes are as beautiful as the rest of his face. He senses her gaze and asks if she has finished staring. She recoils in shock, completely baffled as to how he knew she was staring. He calmly explains that he could feel her breath on his face. Embarrassed, she quickly backs away, promising not to stare anymore. As she lies down, she quietly laments that it's a shame to keep such a handsome face hidden. She nudges him, casually telling him to move over and give her some space. She immediately chides herself, remembering he is handicapped and likely cannot move on his own. So she moves him herself, satisfied with the new arrangement, while he lies there in stunned silence. He is once again left thinking that his wife is truly in a class of her own. He lets out a soft sigh, wondering at her complete lack of fear or hesitation around him. The next morning, her maid tries to wake her, but she groggily pleads for just 5 more minutes of sleep. The maid frets, warning her that as a new princess, sleeping in will make her the talk of the residence. Finally sitting up, the first thing she asks is the whereabouts of the prince. Her maid informs her he has already returned to his personal courtyard, which is his usual habit. Jiangli mutters that he's a heartless man. A cheerful voice cuts in from the doorway, lamenting how long they've been waiting for her to finally wake up. It's Zhu, who explains that the prince had given orders not to disturb her sleep, though no one expected her to sleep for so long. She gives a sly wink, her expression full of playful insinuation about the wedding night. Flustered, Jiangli quickly changes the subject, beckoning her visitor inside. Zhu states she has 3 messages from the prince. First, the Empress Dowager is away, so the traditional visit is postponed. Second, she is now in charge of the household. Third, she has a limitless budget and doesn't need to ask for permission to buy things. As she sips her tea, she gets the distinct feeling that Zhu has paraphrased heavily. Zhu seems a bit embarrassed, surprised that her new mistress saw right through her. Jiangli smiles, explaining that after spending a night with him, she has a good sense of his personality. His actual message, she surmises, was probably much more blunt. Do whatever you want, just don't bother me. Zhu is amazed by her accurate guess, wondering just how much experience this woman has with men. She'd hoped to examine the chronic poison affecting him, but now it seems she won't get near him again for some time. An idea strikes her. She asks Zhu to take her to his courtyard, promising to be quick. Zhu gently discourages the idea, suggesting it would be unwise. She explains that years of false hope have turned the prince's condition into a psychological scar. It's a topic best left untouched. However, she muses, as his wife, Jiangli holds a unique position. Perhaps she is the one person who could be allowed to ask. Their conversation is interrupted by the maid, announcing a visitor. A gentleman named Han Dai is here, claiming to be an old friend. Jiangli is puzzled. She doesn't recall anyone by that name. Deciding this is her cue to leave, Zia Zhu prepares to return to her post. Before she leaves, she gives Jiangli an enthusiastic thumbs up, cheering her on to win the prince's affection. The visitor, a beautiful woman named Han Dai, greets her with a playful pout, chiding her for forgetting an old friend. Han Dai offers some friendly advice, noting that her disguise as a man could use a few improvements, like a higher collar. Han Dai is astounded that Jiangli not only saw through her disguise, but also correctly deduced her identity as the prince's younger sister. A confident smile plays on Jiangli's lips as she politely asks for confirmation. Han Dai gushes, calling her sister-in-law a magician for her incredible perception, just like her brother. Jiangli observes that while the family resemblance is there, their personalities could not be more different. The princess's cheerful demeanor fades. She explains that her brother wasn't always so cold. His disposition is a result of his circumstances. She shakes her head, deciding not to dwell on unhappy topics. That wasn't the reason for her visit. Jiangli formally inquires as to the purpose of Princess Han Dai's visit. Han Dai confesses that since her brother returned injured, the family has been under constant attack. She came to see if his new wife was up to the challenge. Jiangli calmly asks if she passed the test. Han Dai is more than satisfied, declaring her new sister-in-law to be a kindred spirit. The princess again expresses her sympathy for Jiangli's situation. It's an unfair position, made more complex by a certain favored person in the palace. Jiangli perks up, confused. A favored person. Han Dai explains. Mayo is the prince's daughter, whose mother has passed away. Due to her foster mother's poor health, the child was sent to the palace to serve the queen dowager. Jiangli groans inwardly. She's been here barely a day and is already becoming a stepmother. It seems there's no reward for hard work in this world. Han Dai encourages her to work hard at it. Though the prince has rarely met his only child, he cares for her deeply. She gives another enthusiastic thumbs up, cheering her on to win her brother's heart. Jiangli fumes silently. Winning hearts is not so simple. If two people are not compatible, even divine intervention won't make them get along. With renewed determination, she instructs Tao Fen to bring her books. She intends to shut herself away and study. Some time later, her maid remarks that she has been holed up studying for so long that mushrooms have started to grow on her. Looking up from her book, Jiangli agrees it's time for a break. She suggests they go for a walk outside the residence walls. The attendant expresses her concern over the rigid protocols and constant supervision that make leaving the residence a complicated ordeal. The lady, however, has a mischievous idea, suggesting they simply sneak out in secret. They successfully slip away, and the attendant is amazed by her lady's cleverness in escaping the confines of their residence. The lady smugly remarks that a few tricks are all one needs to bypass the rules. Now that they are free, the attendant eagerly asks where they should go, while her lady thoughtfully considers their destination. A brilliant idea strikes her. They can visit the Yu Huang courtyard to find the third prince and take care of some errands at the same time. The attendant is curious and confused, wondering what business her lady could possibly have with the third prince. She immediately regrets her slip of the tongue. Flustered at having accidentally revealed her secret intentions, she quickly regains her composure, sternly warning her attendant that some matters are too important to question, lest it bring unnecessary trouble. They arrive at the Yu Huang courtyard, a secluded and quiet place surrounded by lush greenery. Looking upon the tranquil scenery, she muses that Yu Han King certainly knows how to appreciate the finer things in life. As her attendant struggles to follow her over the wall, she questions the wisdom of trespassing, regardless of the prince's taste for leisure. She explains that scouting the unfamiliar territory is a necessary precaution, especially since they've snuck away from the prince's residence. As they walk through the eerily quiet courtyard, she finds the complete absence of patrolling guards highly suspicious. Undeterred by the strangeness, her curiosity takes over, and she decides to investigate further inside. Peeking into the courtyard, they overhear a noblewoman complaining to Brother Han King about the inconvenience of visiting him in such a remote place. The two intruders hide and listen in, with the lady finding the unfolding scene to be a display of tragic love. Han King, looking weary, dismisses the woman's complaints, telling her to leave and not return if she is finished with her tantrum. The woman declares her new status as his side consort, vowing to endure any torment just to remain by his side. He coldly crushes her hopes, stating that their union is doomed and he will eventually find a way to get rid of her. Undeterred, the woman cheerfully promises to visit him frequently now that she knows the location of his secluded courtyard. His patience worn thin, he delivers a chilling warning. If she trespasses again without his permission, he cannot guarantee her safety. The lady freezes in her hiding spot, the weight of his words landing squarely on her as well. The threat was not just for the consort. An unseen assailant suddenly holds a blade to her throat, startling her and making her attendant cry out in terror. The attacker, another woman, stammers in surprise, while the lady expresses her immense relief upon recognizing the familiar face. The assailant, now revealed as a friend, playfully asks if it was a pleasant surprise. She explains her initial alarm, mistaking her cross-dressed friend for a genuine troublemaker in the tense atmosphere of the courtyard. In a conspiratorial whisper, her friend confirms she also snuck out, and they share a moment of mutual understanding. She clears her throat, trying to regain some decorum, only to notice her poor attendant has fainted from the fright. Han King, alerted by the commotion, approaches and sternly demands to know why she has come. Instead of answering, she turns the question back on him, demanding to know how he detected her presence. He dismisses her question entirely and coldly instructs his attendant, Qiu Feng, to remove her from the premises. Internally, Han King laments his fate, always being given the thankless tasks that are sure to cause offense. As Qiu Feng moves to obey, the princess halts him, casually agreeing to finally answer the prince's question. She claims boredom drove her out for a walk, but he retorts that housekeeper Mu could have easily arranged an outing for her. She argues that the housekeeper's rigid rules and entourage would spoil the fun, prompting a sharp question about her true motives for visiting his courtyard. She feigns innocence, coyly pondering how a simple stroll could have possibly led her to his specific location. His patience exhausted, he starts to call for Qiu Feng again, forcing her to abandon her pretense and admit she came specifically to see him. She reminds him of their marital status and her obligation, stating that Han Dai himself requested she check on his well-being. Since he refused to return to the residence, she felt she had no choice but to come to him, an effort he deems entirely unnecessary. She lets out an exasperated sigh as he icily reiterates that her presence is not needed. He commands her to disregard Han Dai's words and stay out of his affairs, insisting her place is to remain in the residence and not cause trouble. Her temper flares. If he doesn't want her concern, fine, it saves her the effort. She wishes him good luck with a sarcastic bite and turns to leave. She leaves in a huff, her entourage scrambling to keep up with her furious pace. He stops her departure with a single question, a hint of concern finally breaking through his cold exterior. She snaps back, annoyed that he's still maintaining his distant, princely demeanor after she's come all this way. A flicker of amusement crosses his face. He then turns his attention to her attendant, beckoning the young man forward. The attendant points to himself in confusion, a dawning realization of dread washing over him as he's singled out. She turns to her bewildered attendant, who is still processing the situation, and asks if he has any money. With a charming smile, she explains her forgetfulness, asking to borrow some money with a promise to repay it later. The flustered attendant quickly retrieves a few silver fragments, humbly offering what little he has. She accepts the money with a grateful smile, commending him as a promising young man whose kindness will be remembered. Her business concluded, she instructs her attendant, Tao Fen, to present the osmanthus cake he brought. She presents the cake as a rare treat from Xuan City, a new and old recipe combined, and invites them to have a taste. With a final, parting shot, she warns him not to have her followed, reasserting her independence before she departs. Her friend muses on the prince's uncharacteristic patience, noting he seems to have a soft spot for Jiangli. Qiu Feng formally presents the osmanthus cake to his master, clarifying that it is a gift from the princess. He relays her message, emphasizing that she made the unique cake herself and wanted him to be the first to try it. The friend gives Qiu Feng an encouraging thumbs up, recognizing that serving such a master requires a certain kind of talent. As they leave, Jiangli's attention is caught by the sight of Lady Liu arriving. She questions Lady Liu's presence, finding it odd that such a secluded courtyard has suddenly become a popular destination. Her attendant questions the purchase from a store linked to her rival, but Jiangli dismisses the concern, focused only on the quality of the goods. She then cheerfully leads her shocked companions towards an infamous establishment, promising them an eye-opening experience. Inside, a man named Sikong Nanjian observes her arrival, amused by the third princess's daring disguise and adventurous spirit. As she is welcomed in, Sikong Nanjian is captivated not by her appearance, but by a unique and special fragrance emanating from her. He approaches her directly, complimenting the special scent from her fragrance pouch and politely requesting a closer look. She studies his face, a flicker of recognition in her eyes as she feels she has seen this man somewhere before. She hands over the pouch, intrigued, and asks him to introduce himself. He states his name is Sikong Nanjian and asks for hers in return. She simply replies, Jiangli. After a moment of inspection, he looks up at her, remarking that the fragrance she has created is indeed very complex. With a charming and slightly sly smile, he invites her to a more private setting, upstairs, to continue their conversation. He lays out his deductions coolly. He knew she was cross-dressing, a fragrance maker named Jiangli, and currently in Xuan City. The puzzle was simple. He states with confidence that failing to deduce her identity from these clues would mean he, Sikong Nanjian, has no business being in the city. She feels a pang of disappointment, wondering if her disguise was really so easy to see through. He clarifies that her disguise is excellent against ordinary people. However, he is far from ordinary. He offers a backhanded compliment, stating that he prefers her appearance in men's clothing. Comprehending his exceptional nature, she takes the opportunity to cheekily ask if his impressive status means he'll be footing her bill. He is momentarily stunned by her audacity, but agrees with a strained smile, remarking that the third princess is a shrewd negotiator. Her attendant questions the potential partnership, but Jiangli sees it as a risk-free opportunity where she can only profit from his offer. She explains her strategy to her attendant. Rushing into a deal is unwise. A little delay might allow her to negotiate a better price. Back at her residence, her attendant is alarmed to see Madame Yao's servant, Ning Jiangli, furtively leaving their room at such a late hour. As soon as she enters, she senses something is amiss and immediately orders the room to be aired out. The lingering scent confirms her suspicion. An enemy within the prince's own residence is actively trying to harm her. Her attendant immediately suspects Madame Yao is behind this, having sent her servant Ning Jiangli to carry out the deed. She coldly assesses the situation, thinking that while the intent was malicious, the method of poisoning the incense was rather clumsy. Meanwhile, the prince inquires from his solitude, wanting to know if the princess has returned to the residence yet. Qiu Feng internally scoffs at his master's feigned indifference, knowing the prince had secretly ordered him to ensure the princess's safe return. The attendant formally reports that Her Highness has indeed returned safely to the residence. The prince, still focused on his desk, questions why his attendant took so long to get back. Qiu Feng explains he was merely following orders, ensuring the princess was securely inside her quarters before he left. His curiosity piqued, the prince presses for details about her activities throughout the evening. The attendant diligently recounts her movements, from the Yu Huang courtyard to the Zhu family store and a long stroll through the streets. He trails off, visibly hesitant to reveal the final and most scandalous destination of her trip. The prince senses his hesitation and demands to know where else she went. With great reluctance, the attendant confesses that the princess visited Zhui Zaixiang. When the prince asks for clarification, the attendant has no choice but to admit that it is, in fact, a brothel. The prince quietly processes this information, asking if she truly stayed at such a place all evening. The attendant confirms. Having heard enough, the prince calmly dismisses his attendant, telling him to go and rest. The following day finds Jiangli in high spirits, enthusiastically cheering for a woman practicing her martial arts with impressive stability. The woman, Yao Xuhan, pauses her training and tells Jiangli to state her business directly so she can resume her practice. Jiangli gets straight to the point, inquiring about the whereabouts of Yao Xuhan's servant, Ning Jiangli. Yao Xuhan is immediately on guard, suspiciously asking why the princess would be looking for her personal servant. One projects an image of pure benevolence, while the other is consumed by an indescribable fear. The power dynamic is clear. Yao Xuhan offers a quick excuse, claiming that she sent Ning Jiangli on an errand and that she is not currently present. Jiangli presses further, asking about Ning Jiang's visit to her residence. Yao Xuhan explains she was delivering gifts from her father. Having provided a plausible explanation, she asks if Jiangli has any more questions, hoping to end the interrogation. Jiangli seemingly accepts the story, simply requesting that Ning Jiangli be sent to see her upon her return. This simple request makes Yao Shuhan snap, angrily questioning what right Jiangli has to give her orders. Later, her attendant reports that Ning Jiangli has returned, but refuses to appear. Jiangli calmly decides it's time to employ a different method. She resolves to report the tampered incense burner to housekeeper Mu, letting him handle the insubordinate servant. Housekeeper Mu proves effective, delivering a terrified Ning Jiangli, who kneels before the princess under the watchful eye of her own mistress. Yao Shuhan follows them in, demanding to know what offense her servant could have possibly committed to warrant such a scene. Jiangli turns the tables, pointing out that if the servant was innocent, then Yao Shuhan's attempts to prevent this meeting are highly suspicious. Flustered and angry, Yao Shuhan vehemently declares that Ning Jiangli is her servant, and thus her responsibility alone. Jiangli calmly refutes her, reminding her that all servants in this household belong to the third prince's residence, not to any individual consort. Having established her authority, she turns her attention to the terrified servant and demands an account of her actions. Seeing her servant look to her for guidance, a panicked Yao Shuhan furiously orders her to speak up and tell the princess what she did. The servant recounts her mistress's simple request for more fragrance powder. Jiangli immediately asks to see the purchased item. Caught in a lie, the servant stammers that she has already delivered the fragrance powder to her mistress. Unconvinced, Jiangli instructs the housekeeper to go and fetch the fragrance powder himself. Yao Shuhan demands to know what is going on. Jiangli explains that she discovered her incense burner was tampered with right after Ning Jiangli was in her room. She firmly states that under the circumstances, she has every right to question the prime suspect. The servant panics and denies any knowledge of the incident, insisting she only went to the room to deliver items and left upon finding it empty. Yao Shuhan seizes the opportunity to accuse Jiangli of fabricating the entire incident, just to frame her innocent servant. She vouches for Ning Jiangli's loyalty and ignorance, stating the servant is illiterate and only recognizes scents associated with her. At that moment, the housekeeper returns, presenting the fragrance powder he was sent to retrieve. Jiangli identifies the powder as Wansu-Fragrance, commenting on its unpleasant scent and questioning Yao Shuhan's taste. Turning her focus, she declares the housekeeper the most suspicious person now and presses him to remember anyone he might have seen near her pavilion. Her gaze is intense as she urges him to think carefully about anything, no matter how small, that seemed out of place. She then gives the servant an ultimatum: reveal the mastermind's identity and be spared, or take the fall alone. Yao Shuhan explodes, accusing Jiangli of targeting her. Jiangli coolly advises her to calm down, noting that even a loyal servant can be manipulated. The pressure works. The servant cries out that she has just remembered something vital. She saw someone rushing out of the princess's room. She explains that she assumed it was a servant and thought nothing of it, never suspecting that she was witnessing the true culprit. Yao Shuhan latches onto this new information, eagerly proclaiming that this mysterious person must be the real perpetrator. Pressed for details, the servant admits she only got a vague glimpse of the person's build before they hurried away through a side door. Jiangli decides it's too late to continue. She instructs the housekeeper to keep Ning Jiangli under surveillance and resolves to revisit the issue in the morning. Alone with her thoughts, Jiangli reevaluates the situation, beginning to believe her initial suspicions about Ning Jiangli and Yao Shuhan were baseless. If the servant's story is true, it means there is a third, unknown party involved. She racks her brain, trying to identify this hidden enemy. Her contemplation is shattered as her attendant rushes in with shocking news. Ning Jiangli has been found dead. The news hits her like a physical blow. She instantly understands that this is a calculated move against her, and the situation has escalated dramatically. She immediately goes to the scene of the death and demands an explanation from housekeeper Mu. The housekeeper recounts how a servant discovered the body that morning when delivering food. Ning Jiangli was already gone. A chilling realization washes over her. She feels like a pawn in a larger game, with every event being manipulated by an unseen hand. Yao Shuhan appears, hysterical with grief and rage, and publicly accuses Jiangli of being a malicious woman who murdered her servant. Her accusations escalate as she declares that not even a princess is above the law and cannot get away with murder. She vows to seek justice from her powerful father, refusing to let the matter be swept under the rug. Losing her patience with the baseless accusations, Jiangli grabs the hysterical woman and bluntly calls her an idiot. The commotion attracts more onlookers as two other noblewomen, Wang Ruyan and Zhu Xiaoan, arrive on the scene. Wang Ruyan approaches cautiously, asking Jiangli why she is present at such a grim scene. She explains that she heard a rumor about the death of an important witness and came to see what was happening. She adds that she was visiting the nearby sister Zhu, and upon hearing the news, brought her along to investigate. Overhearing the conversation, Yao Xuhan screeches at Lady Wang, warning her to stay away from the dangerous princess, who might drag her into trouble. Jiangli silences her, stating that this is a matter for the third prince to handle, and he will be the one to administer justice. A physician examines the body, and after a brief inspection, confirms to the assembled ladies that the cause of death was indeed poison. Jiangli immediately seeks more information, wanting to know the specific type of poison that was used. The physician admits his limitations, but can confirm one crucial detail. It was a poison that must be inhaled. Her mind works quickly. If it was an inhaled poison, there must be lingering traces of it somewhere in the servant's room. As she considers this, she becomes aware of a strong, musty smell of mold pervading the small room. The pieces click into place. The poison was a fragrance, connecting this murder to the attempt on her own life. The killer is someone from the residence, but she is left to wonder which family they belong to and what they hope to achieve. She turns to Zhu Xiaoan, an expert in scents, and asks if she can identify the specific type of poison used. Zhu Xiaoan notes that despite the moldy smell, the underlying fragrance is one she recognizes. She then makes a damning statement. She remembers smelling this exact fragrance in Jiangli's pavilion, from a pouch the princess was making herself. Yao Xuhan leaps on this, declaring that Sister Zhu's testimony proves Jiangli's guilt beyond any doubt. Jiangli concedes that her pouch she created does indeed have a similar scent, a fact that does not help her case. She internally questions Zhu Xiaoan's motives, wondering if this was a slip of the tongue or a deliberate, calculated accusation. She slyly compliments Lady Zhu's incredible sense of smell, planting a seed of doubt by highlighting how difficult it would be to identify the scent. She directly questions how Lady Zhu could be so certain, demanding a proper reason before she can be accused of murder. She then admonishes Lady Yao, pointing out that her foolish actions have resulted in her own servant's death and implicated the princess. She declares her intent to uncover the true mastermind, reasoning that it takes great effort to provoke someone with such a convoluted and illogical plot. Lady Yao, unconvinced, fires back that Jiangli has been hostile towards her from the moment she arrived at the residence. She appeals to the third prince, who has just arrived, dramatically accusing Princess Ling of murder and pleading for him to uphold justice. The prince responds with chilling pragmatism, questioning if she truly expects a princess to pay with her life for that of a mere servant. Jiangli is inwardly exasperated by his comment, realizing his bluntness, while perhaps helpful, makes him a terrible ally in a delicate situation. His words imply her guilt and dismiss the value of the servant's life, a perspective she finds utterly infuriating. He quietly confirms that his statement was deliberate, and he knows what he's doing. Lady Zhu, hiding behind her fan, questions if he intends to simply let the matter drop without a proper investigation. She expresses her long-held frustration, mourning the fact that he has always kept her at a cold, unreachable distance. Jiangli challenges Lady Zhu directly, demanding she provide concrete evidence if she continues to insist the poisonous fragrance was one of her making. She expertly deconstructs the accusation, explaining that the recipe is far too common and simple to be uniquely identified. She presses the point, highlighting the sheer number of fragrances with similar ingredients, but Lady Zhu stubbornly sticks to her story. Having reached his limit with the bickering, the prince declares the discussion over and commands them to return. As the group departs, her friend notices her lingering behind and calls out, reminding her that the prince is waiting. She vents her frustration, expressing her deep desire to have nothing more to do with her tactless husband. Despite her inner turmoil, she puts on a bright smile and calls out that she is on her way. Back in his courtyard, she explains her return by stating that she had to intervene before their squabbling escalated into a full-blown war. She slyly remarks that perhaps she should cause more trouble, as it seems to be the only way to get his attention. Annoyed by his silence, she turns her back on him, deciding to meet his coldness with her own. A servant's announcement interrupts her mood, informing her that young Master Sikong is there to see her. The name jolts her memory. Amidst the chaos of the murder investigation, she had completely forgotten about her business opportunity with him. The prince, overhearing the name, turns to her and inquires about the identity of this young Master Sikong. She brushes off his question, coolly stating that it's her private affair and none of his concern before walking away. In a surprising show of strength and affection, she lifts him from his wheelchair, declaring it's time for his afternoon nap. She coaxes him with the promise of his favorite cakes if he behaves, all while he struggles against being manhandled. Lying in bed, he is utterly bewildered, wondering why he was suddenly carried off and forced to nap for no apparent reason. Outside, her friend Zia Zhu sees her emerge from the room and immediately asks after the Lord's whereabouts. Jiangli proudly announces that she has put him down for an afternoon nap, much to Zia Zhu's complete confusion. Zia Zhu is baffled, stating that the Lord has never been one to take afternoon naps. Jiangli enters the room, where Sikong Nanjian is waiting with housekeeper Mu, who seems surprised to see her enter. She confidently asserts her right to be there, reminding him that she is more familiar with the residence than he is. Sikong Nanjian gives her a once-over and offers a backhanded compliment, stating that he prefers her appearance in men's clothing. She is momentarily thrown off by his strange comment, silently questioning his character. He clarifies his connection, revealing that he is the son of a neighboring minister and a childhood friend of the prince. She quickly sizes him up, mentally labeling him as a privileged second-generation official. An opportunistic gleam enters her eye as she realizes his status means he is a valuable resource to be exploited for her own benefit. The deal is struck. They shake hands, marking the beginning of Ling Jiangli's business empire. She presents a formal agreement, making it clear that their partnership is bound by rules and consequences for any breach of trust. He notices the name on the contract is Du Ruo and questions her reason for using a pseudonym. She gives him a look of exasperation, explaining the obvious. Her royal status makes it impossible for her to be openly associated with a brothel. Furthermore, she clarifies that she has bigger plans than just supplying his business. She intends to open her own fragrance store in the capital. He is surprisingly agreeable, even offering to gift her a store as a sign of good faith and an upfront payment for their contract. She is stunned by his casual generosity, amazed that people in this era could simply give away property so easily. She observes that he has a deep knowledge of fragrances, yet seems ignorant of their use for women, leading her to suspect he studies them for darker purposes. He offhandedly mentions a recent encounter with a talkative individual named Tu Ran, who, coincidentally, was also researching aromatic poisons. He dryly remarks that she and this Tu Ran would likely find they have much in common to discuss. She is internally fuming, insulted at being called both long-winded and stupid, and vows to settle the score with everyone in the third prince's residence. He notices her sudden silence and asks what's on her mind. He was just thinking that this Tu Ran, he speaks of sounds like a fine man. Changing the subject, he mentions hearing about the trouble at the residence and asks her to tell him what happened. She rebuffs his nosiness, calling him a gossip and using the late hour as an excuse to end their meeting. Before he goes, she gives him a task: to gather intelligence on the ladies of the brothel, specifically their profiles and scent preferences. He is left bewildered by her mercurial temperament, which changes faster than he can keep up with. Upon her return, she is greeted by her emotional attendant, who is relieved to finally see her back. Her attendant expresses concern that the prince has left, but Jiangli nonchalantly replies that she cannot stop him from going where he pleases. She cynically reflects on Lady Liu's status as the prince's favorite, stating she wouldn't be so heartless as to interfere with their affectionate reunion. Back in her room, Zia Zhu has returned, reporting with impressive speed. Jiangli praises her efficiency, and Zia Zhu proudly asks who she thinks she is dealing with. Of course, she's fast. She has brought a bag containing all of the deceased servant's belongings, an act of thoroughness that greatly impresses Jiangli. Zia Zhu puffs out her chest with pride, boasting that her efficiency is why the Lord entrusts her with all manner of tasks, both big and small. While examining the items, Jiangli notes a missing name among the prince's personal attendants, wondering why Dong Shuang is not mentioned. Zia Zhu's confident demeanor evaporates, replaced by panic as she realizes she has spoken out of turn. She explains that Dong Shuang was once the most skilled among them, but something happened to him 7 years ago. Unable to continue, she simply offers an apology for bringing up a painful memory. Jiangli reassures her that no apology is needed, admitting that it is simply a sad memory that is upsetting to recall. Zia Zhu's loyalty is absolute. She closes her eyes and states that her life and the lives of her comrades belong to their lord. The display of devotion makes Jiangli reflect on her own past life, wondering if her old friends remember her with such somber loyalty. Zia Zhu changes the subject, reporting that she encountered someone else while investigating the servant's room. She couldn't identify the person, but their movements suggested they were also investigating. Their stealth skills were so perfect that pursuit was impossible. Although the intruder's identity remains a mystery, their presence confirms that there was indeed crucial evidence hidden in Ning Jiang's room. Jiangli asks the critical question: was Xia Zhu's identity compromised during the encounter? Xia Zhu confirms she acted with discretion to avoid sullying the prince's reputation, earning her mistress's praise. At their next meeting, Sikong Nanjian presents her with meticulously prepared research, books containing portraits and notes on the preferences of his clientele. She is once again impressed by his deliberate and thoughtful approach, which covers every detail she needs. He then delivers on his promise, presenting her with the deed to a store located just outside the capital, a strategic and advantageous location. She can hardly believe her luck, holding the deed to a gold store in a major commercial district. With a greedy glint in her eyes, she snatches the deed, assuring him that now that payment has been rendered, she will not be lazy. He inquires about her progress for the upcoming floral exhibit. She confidently agrees to formulate a suitable fragrance and discuss other plans later. They seal their agreement with a pinky promise, a gesture he finds amusingly childish for people their age. Business concluded, he returns to the matter of the murder, asking her to finally explain the situation she needed his help with. She recounts the details of the murder at the royal residence, focusing on the mysterious scent that was both similar to her own incense and yet different. Her request is simple. She needs him to determine whether the incense used in the murder was stolen from her own supplies. He agrees to try, but cautions her that analyzing a scent that dissipates so quickly will be a difficult task. She places her trust in him, addressing him with a more familiar name, Sea King. He acknowledges that she seems to have many questions for him, and since she has been a great help, he invites her to ask whatever she wants. She gets straight to the point, her expression serious as she asks about the nature of his relationship with Yuhan King. He smiles fondly, confirming that they grew up together due to the political circumstances that sent many of the emperor's sons far from the palace. He admits their friendship didn't start warmly, but over time they developed a decent bond. He laments that ever since the prince's accident, he has become cold and distant, like a block of ice, and their easy camaraderie is a thing of the past. Her eyes sharpen as she connects the dots. Since he studies poisons, she asks if he knows what kind of poison was used on the prince. Her question reveals her hand. He looks at her with new understanding, finally realizing her true motive for this entire partnership. When the emperor brought him from the countryside, his condition baffled every doctor in the nation. It was only the practitioners at Xiangyuan who could manage his symptoms. The physician recalls his early frustrations with the case, unable to understand it as a novice. Now, years later and more experienced, he is irritated that the stubborn patient refuses to be seen. She suggests a simple blood test for the poison, but he dismisses the idea. The condition has become too complex after years of being untreated and mixed with other medicines. He determines that the only path forward requires the patient to be completely honest about his past. Only then can a proper investigation even begin. The princess, with a sudden burst of cheerful audacity, proposes a rather direct solution to their problem. She suggests they simply kidnap him. Her blunt and improper suggestion breaks his serious demeanor, sending him into a fit of laughter. He playfully admonishes her wild imagination, reminding her of the absurdity of a princess kidnapping her own husband. Such an act would surely be a death wish. She sighs in disappointment, musing on the contradiction of her husband's character. He is cowardly, yet somehow managed to successfully run a brothel. She reaffirms her noble purpose with a pout. Her mission is a sacred one, meant to heal and save lives. Speak of the devil. Just as she thinks of him, the man arrives, looking somewhat crippled but present nonetheless. Startled by his sudden appearance, she demands to know why he is here. He explains calmly that he is simply taking a walk in the garden. His gaze is fixed on her, as he questions if she is truly by herself. Of course she is alone, who else would be with her? He brings up the evening's royal family dinner, catching her completely off guard. She offers a helping hand, but he rejects it without a second thought. She silently wonders if it's safe for Yuhan King to be out alone, picturing him vulnerable to various plots. A maid watches from afar, sighing as her own soul seems to leave her body. She despairs over the princess's complete lack of interest in securing the prince's affection. Her maid rushes over, informing her that the prince just visited, The princess already knows, having just seen him herself. The maid elaborates, explaining she told the prince's wife was in the garden with another man. Mortified, she realizes her maid told the truth when she had just lied to the prince. She feels like she narrowly dodged a catastrophic misunderstanding. A cloud of gloom settles over the princess, and her maid rushes to her side in a panic. A stern announcement is made regarding the Empress Dowager's return in a few days. Everyone is warned to be on their best behavior, as Her Majesty is meticulous about appearances. While the important announcement continues, her mind completely checks out. She ponders the grand mysteries of life and the universe instead. The warning about appearances is aimed directly at her, pulling her abruptly from her reverie. She gives him a reassuring grin, promising to behave, yet silently scoffs at the insinuation. At the dinner table, the maid prepares to serve the prince. He gives a simple command to proceed. The other ladies crowd around the prince, eagerly offering him food and attention. The princess finds herself pushed to the side, unable to participate. The aggressive fawning of the other women is terrifying to her. She feels they are acting like they want to devour him whole. Overwhelmed by the situation, she announces she's done with her meal and promptly gets up to leave. Her sudden departure leaves the others wondering where she has gone. The prince informs the remaining ladies that he is also leaving for Ling Jiangli, suggesting they all head back together. She can feel the animosity from the other women, imagining their glares could kill. She thinks Yuhan King let her off easy this time. A lady in blue shows the prince a vial. The princess complains to herself, questioning why he'd leave Madame Liu's company to seek boredom with her. A sudden sneeze makes her wonder if her mental curses are having a physical effect. She catches herself admiring his features, realizing that she even finds his sneeze attractive. She scolds herself for her weakness, feeling hopeless as she succumbs to his good looks against her better judgment. The feeling of hopelessness persists as she laments her inability to resist his handsomeness. He notices something is off and asks her what has happened to him. She breezily explains she was just swatting a mosquito, feigning uncertainty about its fate. While attending to his hair, she probes about Madame Liu. He deflects the question, turning it back on her. She alludes to the palace gossip about his close relationship with Madame Liu, stating the reason for her question should be obvious. He looks away, insisting that she has misunderstood the nature of his connection with the other woman. She quickly dismisses her own question, claiming it was just a casual inquiry, nothing more. She tries to diffuse the tension, repeating that her question was casual and didn't mean anything. He dismisses the rumors as unimportant, claiming he is too preoccupied with recent events to give them any thought. Yet, he pointedly remarks, she seems to find the time for clandestine rendezvous with rumored lovers. His words hit her, and her mind stalls, trying to process the sudden accusation. He stares her down, waiting to see if she has an explanation for her actions. Her frustration boils over internally. Unable to see his eyes, she feels utterly lost, unable to guess his true thoughts. She leaps to her feet, slapping his knee in defiance. She proclaims her moral integrity and tells him to think whatever he wants. He coldly reminds her of her status as his wife and the etiquette that comes with it. She glares back, furiously refuting the idea that she ever wanted to marry into his palace in the first place. Her anger peaks as she rants about her lack of choice in the matter. Her fate was sealed by an imperial decree she never agreed to. She shoves his chair, declaring that at least her own family, for all its faults, isn't a place where people are devoured without a trace. She justifies her actions by explaining her immediate connection with Han Dai. She never expected him to misunderstand her so completely. He listens silently, but his internal monologue reveals a growing rage. He lectures her on the consequences of her actions, pointing out that her choices cause pain to those who care for her. She challenges him, asking if he truly believed she was just silently going along with her own planned departure from the palace. She questions why it should matter to him if she makes plans for her future, even if it involves another man. A wave of guilt washes over her. The words, usually so easy to say, feel wrong tonight. She pats her own cheeks, trying to regain her composure and shake off the unwelcome feelings. She turns to leave, announcing that she is done with him. Whether he lives or dies, it will be of no consequence to her. She throws one last insult over her shoulder, telling him his cold, distant demeanor is utterly despicable. Her expression hardens with pure contempt. Just as she walks away, he grabs her arm, stopping her in her tracks and demanding to know where she's going. She pulls against his grip, incredulous that he would stop her after everything she just said. He forces her to listen, explaining his earlier words. He knows she dislikes his half-dead, unlikable demeanor and doesn't want to be with him. His eyes seem to pierce through the blindfold as he commands her to repeat herself. Though flustered, she stands her ground. She will say it again. She doesn't want to be with him, and it's up to him how they separate. He abruptly pulls her onto his lap, much to her shock and confusion. As he starts moving the wheelchair, she clings on, shouting at him to stop. She lands on the bed, tears of rage in her eyes as she curses him and his entire family. Outraged by his sudden display of strength, she sarcastically asks if the emperor is aware of his impressive wheelchair skills. His reply is simple and serious. No, they do not. His earnest response in the middle of their fight completely disarms her. This man is going to make her lose her mind. Exasperated, she concedes defeat. It's impossible to argue with him, so she pleads for him to let this go. He calmly steers the conversation back to its starting point, asking again what she was doing with another man in the garden. The realization dawns on her. This whole blow-up started with his simple question about the other man. She was too heated to recall her exact words, but a nagging feeling tells her something is not right. She recalls his accusation about her lack of etiquette and lashes out. He calmly keeps a tally of her insults. She leans in, unintimidated. She declares that she isn't afraid of him, and given their status difference, everything she says is technically offensive anyway. He shifts the topic back to his original line of questioning, asking how she knew it was Si Kong Nan Jian she was meeting. He reveals his source was housekeeper Mu, holding up 2 fingers to mark the second offense. She slumps in resignation. It seems there's no such thing as privacy in this palace. Deciding honesty is the best policy. She admits to meeting the man when she snuck out of the palace. She clarifies that she needed his help because she was framed and is not skilled at investigations herself. As an afterthought, she confesses she also used the opportunity to inquire about his own mysterious situation. He acknowledges her efforts, but doubts their fruitfulness. He is likely the only one who knows the whole truth. She expresses her disappointment that the meeting was unhelpful. He cuts the conversation short, telling her it's time for bed. She's not ready to end the conversation and protests his dismissal. She reiterates her earlier demand, insisting he write her a letter of divorce immediately. He thinks to himself that he has been honest with her about the things she has asked. She lunges forward in a rage, warning him not to mistake her previous cooperation for weakness. He intercepts her attack, silencing her protests with an unexpected kiss. He pulls away, coolly complimenting her mouth before declaring the night's events forgotten and once again telling her to rest. She stares in shock and fury. He can't just erase what happened. He stole her first kiss. Overcome with embarrassment, she covers her face, trying to explain that her earlier slap wasn't intentional. She explains away her actions as an involuntary reflex, a result of the tense situation. Seeing the bright red mark on his cheek, she feels a pang of regret for marring such a handsome face. She feigns concern, fussing over his cheek and offering to take a look at the swelling. He gently stops her, once again telling her it is late and time to rest. His repeated, calm insistence on rest leaves her completely baffled. He explains his reasoning, stating he cannot inconvenience others forever due to his crippled legs. As he gets into bed, he expresses his confusion at her behavior. He then bluntly asks her to help him remove his clothes. His request sends her into a silent, internal rage. She takes a deep breath and decides to let it go. She slapped him, so she'll consider them even. She advises him against using such words with women, but he defends his unpredictable way of thinking. She stares at him intently, a sudden suspicion forming. She asks if he just laughed. He denies it without missing a beat, telling her she misheard. A silent argument unfolds as she insists he laughed while he continues to deny it. He ends the argument by pointing to the night sky and repeating his familiar refrain. Lying beside him in bed, she quietly checks to see if he has fallen asleep. Seeing his still form, she assumes he is already sound asleep. She studies his face, marveling at his handsomeness despite the red mark. She wonders why her slap left such a visible trace. She touches the mark gently, concluding his skin is incredibly delicate, a sign of a pampered life. The softness of his skin surprises her. Her admiration grows as she studies his features, cataloging his perfect chin and sharp nose. A small, angelic voice of conscience reminds her that it is inappropriate to be admiring him right after their fight. But a mischievous, devilish voice encourages her, insisting there's no harm in just looking. Giving in to temptation, she decides to just take one little peek at his collarbone. Her heart thumps in her chest as she prepares for a quick, thrilling glance. She gives in for a second, before being struck by a wave of embarrassment, mortified by her own actions. Her internal conflict rages on, the devil egging her on while her better half objects. She makes a new pact with herself. One last look, just his shoulders, and then she'll stop. She reasons that an opportunity like this, to observe a handsome man so defenselessly, is too good to waste. Throwing caution to the wind, she decides to take full advantage of the situation. Suddenly, his eyes are open and he speaks, asking if she's done looking. She's utterly busted, stammering in disbelief. Trapped, she resorts to nervous laughter and compliments his attractive collarbone. The familiar phrase echoes again. It is late, time to rest. Overwhelmed by sheer embarrassment, she burrows under the covers to hide. From beside her, he calmly points out that her habit of removing people's clothes is rather poor form. Hiding in her cocoon of blankets, she dismisses him as a truly boring man. Hearing her maid's concerned voice from outside, she frantically shouts for her to stay away. She emerges, bowing her head and repeating her excuse that her actions were merely a reflex. He forgives her and calmly asks for her assistance in changing his clothes. While helping him, she asks if he also wants to change the ribbon tying his hair. He informs her that he selected deep blue clothes and remembers she usually wears a ribbon of the same color. She changes her mind abruptly, declaring they won't change the ribbon after all. She is internally screaming with frustration, completely unable to decipher his motives. Now properly dressed, she asks about his plans for the day. He has none. She informs him of her own plans to research fragrances, letting him know she'll be nearby if needed. She meticulously follows the steps of her recipe, carefully adding drops of a clear solution to her mixture. Her focus is absolute, as she measures out the exact quantities of each ingredient for her fragrance. A sudden hunger pang interrupts her work. She tells him to stop his silent laughter and announces it's time to eat. With a gentle smile, she repeats her suggestion that they should eat. While they eat, she remembers the impending arrival of the Empress Dowager and asks for his advice on preparations. She is anxious about meeting her mother-in-law for the first time, determined to make a good impression to avoid trouble. He advises her not to worry. Simple courtesy should be enough to stay out of trouble. She asks for more specific information, wanting to know the Empress Dowager's personal preferences. He bluntly lists all the things his mother dislikes in a woman, qualities that seem to describe her perfectly. She takes offense, insisting that despite her free spirit, she knows perfectly well how to behave like a lady. He concedes that the term masculine woman does indeed suit her. Hearing a commotion, she gets up to investigate, telling him to wait for her. She returns, reporting that Yao Shuhan was causing a scene. She sent her away due to her impolite demands. He questions her authority to make such a decision, reminding her of his own status. She asks him directly if he wishes to see the woman. He confirms that he does not. A sly grin spreads across her face, as she deduces that his desire to stay must mean he wants her company instead. He looks unimpressed by her teasing, asking if she truly gets joy from it. She playfully pinches his cheek, admitting that she does, and asks if he doesn't enjoy it as well. He suggests they go inside to rest, but she insists she is not tired. A wicked grin appears as she playfully propositions him, quoting a suggestive proverb. He shuts her down with a blunt, punctuated statement. He feels absolutely no sexual desire for her. Unfazed, she fires back a cutting remark, questioning his physical ability to act on any desires he might have. She drops the topic and returns to her earlier question about his mother's preferences. He advises her that trying to please the Empress Dowager is a pointless endeavor. She despairs, lamenting the difficult dynamic between mothers and daughters-in-law. She just wants to avoid being the least favorite. He stops stroking the cat to remind her of her own words from the previous night, pointing out her contradictory behavior. She realizes that behind his quiet facade, he holds a serious grudge. She attempts to guilt him, suggesting that arguing with a weak woman like herself is beneath him. A flicker of amusement in his expression makes her suspicious, and she accuses him of laughing at her. He finally relents, listing the Empress Dowager's few interests: jades, incense, and health remedies. The word incense sparks an idea in her mind. She stands, proudly announcing her plan to help him gain dignity, a concept he seems to find useless. She pinches his cheek, explaining her logic. Dignity will help him develop a thicker skin. As she works with her calligraphy brush, he brings up a daughter named Miao Miao. He reveals that his daughter, Yu Zhangyu, will be coming to live with them upon her return with the Empress Dowager. He senses her hesitation and prompts her for a reaction. She feels she has no right to an opinion. After all, she's the one who will likely be leaving soon, not the child. A strange sense of loss comes over her as she realizes she's never seen him with his daughter. He admits he and his daughter are estranged and asks her to try and build a relationship with the girl. He assigns her the role of mother to his daughter for the foreseeable future. The absurdity of the situation strikes her. How can she, a beautiful young woman, suddenly be a mother to a 10-year-old? He prefaces the girl's arrival with a warning about her spoiled and stubborn nature, asking for patience. She agrees, confident she can cater to the girl's likes, as she's heard they share an interest in fragrances. She notes his unusual talkativeness, remarking that he's been more verbal today than in the past year. She can't help but find his sudden chattiness adorable. As a reward for her cooperation, he has prepared a special meal for her. He offers her a piece of a dish, asking for her opinion on its taste. He savors the dish, identifying its delicate flavors and wondering if it contains osmanthus. He admits to having tried her osmanthus cakes before and found them delicious, which catches her by surprise. He muses that his daughter would likely enjoy the taste as well. She pouts that his daughter is always on his mind, but promises to be a good stepmother. He quickly tries to correct her misunderstanding. She changes the subject, inquiring about his plans for the evening. He questions her suggestion, and she reminds him tartly that Lady Liu is also his wife. He repeats his denial about Lady Liu. She finds his sudden anger confusing if that's the case. She sighs, resigning herself to the conversation, and telling him to do whatever he wants. A cute illustration marks a new stage in their relationship. She has acquired him as a pet. Her quiet moment is interrupted by a maid, announcing the arrival of visitors. She wonders why Ling Jiangli is visiting. The maid explains that her cousin is in the capital for school. The maid gestures for the guests to enter. Her visitors inform her that classes at the Divine Fragrance Academy are about to start and formally invite her to attend. She eagerly accepts, seeing it as a good chance to learn something new. Lady Zhu, however, nurses a grudge, silently vowing that this will be her chance for revenge against Ling Jiangli. The guests politely inquire if she has created any new fragrances they might sample. She humbly declines, suggesting they are already well aware of her modest skills in perfumery. Lady Zhu offers a backhanded compliment, lamenting the princess's lack of progress despite her resources. She then pointedly brings up the recent poisoning incident at the prince's residence. With a sly look, she suggests the princess only dabbles in poisons because she lacks talent in traditional fragrances. The princess's expression hardens as she calmly warns the woman that she has overstepped. Losing her patience, she dismisses them, stating she is too tired for their pointless conversation. She inwardly scoffs, deciding not to waste her breath. She will simply use her superior status to handle them. The second woman cries out to her cousin in alarm, trying to de-escalate the situation. Sikong Nan, Giant explains to a woman that he and Sister Yun Ning have decided to hold the flower festival earlier than planned. He needs to know how many new fragrances she can produce on a shortened timeline for the festival. A brilliant idea strikes Ling Jiangli. This is the perfect solution for her store's grand opening event. She marvels at her good fortune, recognizing this unexpected opportunity that has presented itself. Seeing her thoughtful silence, he worries that his request might be too demanding. She asks for the date of the event. He informs her it will be in 2 months. 2 months? She is thrilled, as that gives her more than enough time to prepare. He sweetens the deal, offering to pay double and even fund her store's renovation as thanks. She feigns reluctance, sighing about the difficulty of the task, before ultimately agreeing to do her best. A deal is struck, with both parties happy with the arrangement. A devilish tail wags in her thoughts, as she privately mocks him for being a foolish, rich man. He anticipates his companion's question, acknowledging the strangeness of asking his rival, Ling Jiangli, for a favor. He explains the strategic importance of the new fragrance. It is a critical element for the future of his business. His eyes gleam with malice as he reveals his true plan. He will placate her for now, but enact his revenge later. As they leave, he grumbles with annoyance that she didn't even recognize him. Returning to the prince, she tells him she simply went out for a walk. He is not satisfied with her vague answer and asks for a more specific location. She lies, claiming she just visited some fragrance shops in the city. She silently reminds herself that telling him the truth about visiting a brothel is out of the question. His piercing gaze makes her nervous, as he asks if that was truly all she did. She tries to read his intentions, unsure if he is being curious or setting a trap. She holds her ground and confirms her story, hoping he will believe her. He summons her to come closer to him. She hesitates, suddenly worried that getting too close will expose her secret attire. She decides to risk it, hoping she can bluff her way through. She complies, approaching him to help wheel him inside. She feels a pang of guilt for the deception, but believes it's for the best. This secret is just one more thing that makes staying with him impossible. He points out a bowl of warm ginger soup he has prepared for her. She picks up the bowl, perplexed by his uncharacteristically thoughtful gesture. She playfully questions his identity, finding his sudden kindness suspicious. She can't resist pinching his cheeks again, marveling at their softness. He gently puts an end to her teasing. She realizes she needs to change her clothes quickly to avoid being discovered. He notices her movements behind the screen and asks what she is doing. She frets, knowing that telling the truth will only lead to more difficult questions. She improvises a clumsy excuse about the wind and her hair. He counters with a request of his own, asking her to fix his uncomfortable hair bun. She silently panics at his bizarre request, wondering if he has some kind of strange fetish. Once finished, she can't help but admire his hair, feeling a touch of envy at its quality. She jokes aloud that she should just take his beautiful hair for herself. The thought of stealing his hair lingers, as a joke between them,